Hey everybody, welcome to this month's Look Over My Shoulder video. And in this particular video, I'm going to show you how I analyze and calculate out the cost of doing a rehab. Now this is a very simplistic analysis. I'm not getting into the big 24-month cash flow analyses that we do. I'm just going to show you essentially a back of the cocktail napkin type of analysis so you understand how I approach these types of scenarios. Now, the reason why I'm giving you this particular lesson right now is because just in the last week, I think 2 Masterclass Elite members both sent me emails asking essentially the exact same question: how do I calculate out the rehab costs? And when I had the conversation back and forth with them, I realized that they were missing a huge component of the expense. And if they miss that component, they will never make a dime on rehabs. So I realized that, hey, that's probably a very good learning tool. I bet there are a lot of new investors out there that don't take into consideration all of the potential costs or even know how to calculate them out when determining whether they've got a good rehab deal or not. So let me show you exactly how I do it and kind of give you a narrative on a real life situation. So I get a phone call from a client or a Masterclass member, and they say, listen, I got this great rehab opportunity. It is 1980s construction. It's a C class and a B, or a B and an A. It's got all these things wrong with it. Right now it has zero cash flow. There is no one living in this property, and it is a complete rehab. And we can get in there for dirt cheap and make this thing a huge, we will make millions on this deal when we bring this back up to performance. I said, okay, let's take a look at it and analyze it correctly. Now, the first thing that you need to understand, let me get some terminology out of the way. This is a non-performing asset. It is a non-cap rate sale. There's no income on it, which means if you're calculating out the cap rate, the denominator or the numerator is 0, so it's always going to be 0, so there's no cap rate on this property. And right now, knowing what I know, it's going to have to be a hard money loan or a bridge loan. It means I'm going to have to come to the table with 35% down, and these numbers had better look pretty darn good if I'm having to come up with that kind of money in order to make this deal happen. So the first question I ask my Masterclass member or my client is, okay, tell me about this particular area. Once we get this property up and operational, and it is performing exactly the way a typical property like this in that area is performing, how much is that property going to trade for on a per unit basis? Okay, so you can go back and do the comps, you can go on LoopNet and get some comps, you can speak to the broker, but if you're in this marketplace, you should know that answer right away. And in this particular example, we're going to use the number $30,000 per unit, okay? So that means that when I get this thing functional and the vacancy is equal to the market vacancy, then this property is generating an NOI at that cap rate that's going to value the property at such a level that all the units can trade for $30,000. Okay, great, we understand that. Now, that's our end game. That is the gross potential on this property. What do we need to do to get to that number? Well, the first thing we have to do is rehab every unit, right? Now, where are you going to get the money and how are you going to calculate this out? The thing that I do is there's a government program for rehab loans. It's FHA 221D4 is the name of the loan program. And that's kind of the one that I always go back to. Now keep in mind, I'm going to tell you some caveats about that particular program. First one, with FHA, it typically takes 6 months to get the loan done. So that means I get 6 months of carry costs just on the hard money loan to get to the day one with FHA. So there's a cost I got to take into consideration. The FHA 221D loan, now the rule of thumb I've always heard is that the minimum per unit rehab costs to get that loan is $6,000. Now, in anticipation of this particular video, I did my research because I don't want to give you wrong information, and I could not find anywhere on any of the government programs that state $6,000 is the minimum threshold, all right? But for the sake of this discussion, we're going to use $6,000. So for me to get into this 221D4 program, I'm going to have to borrow $6,000 to put into each unit. Now keep in mind, when we say $6,000 per unit, that is both for the internal and the external. So it doesn't mean we're going to spend $6,000 in a particular unit. It means that $6,000, we can put $3,000 in the unit, we can put $3,000 on the roofs, foundation, landscaping, chiller, boiler, HVAC, all those other things. So that $6,000 is just an aggregate number divided by the number of units, all right? And in this particular case, this example, let's say it's a 100-unit property. So $6,000 I'm going to spend on each unit just to get it to the $30,000. So we're going to take that $6,000 off the board. So we're going to deduct $6,000. All right, that leaves us with $24,000 to get that property up to the level so that we can sell it at $30,000. Now, how much profit are we going to put in there? Because now we've just taken the costs. Now we're going to build in our profit. What's a good profit? All right, think about this for a second. If you're new and you're kind of concerned, like you don't know the right answer to this question, let's put some of these numbers in context. How much does a broker make on a sale? 5, 6% of that $30,000 figure? So 5 to 6% of that $30,000 figure is going to go to a guy that all he does is run a couple ads, throw some stuff up on LoopNet, take some phone calls, drive out there, fill out the forms, make the sale. Now, obviously, I've made it very simplistic, but I want you to take it. I want you to understand that guy puts up no capital, very little capital, and he takes on no risk, and he gets 6%. Now, you have put up all his capital. You're spending all your time doing it. You're taking huge risks because the thing might not work. Where does 6% now fall in your mindset of what your profit should be? Let's say now your profit should be 20%. And I got to tell you, on a risky venture like a rehab, 20% profit is not unreasonable. In this particular case, we're going to use 20 just because it's a nice even round number. So 20% profit is $6,000 per unit. So now we are down to $18,000 per unit. All right, now typically, and sometimes it doesn't even get that far, but typically a new investor's analysis will stop right there. And they'll say, well, if it's $30,000 and I offer 18, look at the spread here. That's huge. I'm going to make a ton of dough. Not so fast. And this is the part where all new investors, not all, but many of them tend to fall down. And it's because they don't take into consideration the operational expense of doing this rehab. You see, this $6,000 is not going to be spent in 1 month. You're not going to walk on that property on day one with a big chunk of change, $6,000 per unit, send in a team, have them rehab the whole entire place, and then you fill up all the units within a month. It doesn't work that way. And this is where new investors fall down. Let's think about what really happens on a rehab from an expense standpoint and what you need to do. So take a look at this. Let's look at it from a graph standpoint, okay? Now this is money and this is time. Here we are on day one. How much money do we have coming in? Remember, nobody lives there. So we have zero revenue. Zero. Now, we've got the rehab money and we're going to start putting it to work. But how long is it going to take? Let's say, for example, and this is a very good example I'm about to use because I've seen this many times. Let's say it's a 100-unit complex. There are 5 buildings and there are 20 units in each building. And you decide that the best way to do this rehab is to go in there and rehab 1 building at a time. Okay, that's great. So you take your team and in 1 month, you turn 20 units in 1 building and they are spectacular. Okay, so now we're 3 months down the road and our revenue is still 0. We haven't let 1 unit. Now we're going to start to lease them up. But wait a minute here. There's another term that you need to understand and take into consideration. It's called the absorption rate. You see, you've got 20 units that are now available. How quickly in that marketplace will 20 units be absorbed back into the occupancy pile? How long does it take us to move people in? Are there enough customers that we're able to fill that unit, that building up to 20 units? Let's say, for instance, in this particular case, it's going to take us 6 months to get that unit filled. So now we're down here to 9 months just to get the first set of dollars in the door. Now, we start to rehab the next unit. Well, that's another 6 months. We end one, we start in the next one, another 6 months down the road, and then we've got some more revenue going up here. And do you see how this works? Over time, it's going to take 24 to 36 months, 24 to 36 months to go from zero to having that thing performing at a $30,000 valuation. And I can tell you, when you're doing this analysis, be very, very conservative. It always takes more money and more time than you think. So just be very conservative. So in this particular case, let's say it's going to take 36 months to get this place leased up. That means that's your revenue number over 36 months. What's your expense number look like? Well, on day one, you got to pay for the water, the electric, you got to pay the taxes, you got to pay the note on the loan, you got to pay you're incurring an awful lot of expenses on day one with no revenue. So your expenses are up here. And as time goes on and more people move in, well, your trash is going to go up, your water and sewer is going to go up because people are going to be using that. And so your expenses are going to go like this. Now, here's the part that new investors don't understand. You see this triangle right in here? Those are your carry costs. That's what we call your burn rate. Those are operational expenses that need to get added all up, divided by the number of units, 100 units, and then subtracted to this 18. So if we say that this, over 36 months, it's going to cost us another $300,000 just to carry this property, we now know we've got to subtract that number divided by 100 from the 18, and let's say it's going to be $3,000 a piece. Now we know that the right number to offer for this property on a rehab basis is not 30, it's not 24, and it's not 18 after we take our profit out, it's 15. That's where our profit comes in. Now, remember, we've built in 20%. Is that good? Yeah, it's pretty good. If this plan runs the way it should, will we be happy with making 20%? Yeah, I would be. But can we make it more? And this is where we make really good money with rehab. You have two places where you can make up on your profit with a rehab. The first one is obviously in how you buy it. Make sure you get it at the right, 3 places. You buy it at the right price. But then the rehab cost of $6,000, if you can turn this thing around for $5,000, then you just made $1,000 per unit. That goes right back into your pocket. That's one way to make money on a rehab. Now the other place that you're going to make money in the rehab is over here on the operational costs. Instead of it being 36, you get your team to get out there and do it in 24. And you get people leased up in there very quickly. And all of these operational expenses, the burn cost, goes away. And you have a lot less money that you have to spend, and your rehab just got more profitable. So when you're doing an analysis for any type of rehab, you've got to take into consideration what's it going to look like at the beginning, at the end, what's the rehab costs are going to be, build in my profit, and then consider how long is it going to take me to make this thing fly. And it always takes you more money and more time than you expect, so be very conservative in your analysis. But that is what most investors do wrong, is they do this side and they don't do this side. And what we can do, and as we go through the process, is I can show you some cash flow analyses that we do for this type of project. We spread it out over 24, 36 months, and we can see based upon what the market absorption rate is, and we figure out all these numbers. It's just math. It's very simple, but you've got to think about these things. Otherwise, you're going to fail. And I don't want you to fail. I want you to succeed. So when you get an opportunity for a rehab project, This is all the stuff you need to do. Take this all into consideration. Now you might think to yourself, wait, I'm offering $15,000, they're not going to take me seriously. Remember, biggest lie in multifamily is the asking price. If you can't hang your head in shame, you've offered too much. I wouldn't hesitate one iota to offer $15,000. And anybody that says I'm crazy, well, here are the numbers. Tell me where I'm crazy. Show me why you're right and I'm wrong, Mr. Broker. And most brokers have never operated a property before, so they don't know. All right, that's the end of this look over my shoulder video. I hope it was helpful. If you need any assistance, info@multifamilyinvestingacademy.com. We check that email every single morning. We try to get back to you right away. We want to make sure that you are getting the service that you need and that you're doing this business correctly. All right, we'll see you next month. Talk to you soon.